So, everybody, I would like to welcome you to our Thursdays with Terry webinar. Tonight, along with women's national team coach Terry Steiner, we have a very special guest. He's a four-time NCAA finalist. He's a two-time champion. He's a two-time Dan Hodge Trophy winner. He was voted outstanding wrestler at the NCAAs. I love this part. Not that that wasn't phenomenal. I love this part. He held the NCAA single season pin record, and he ended his college career with 91 pins, which is the third highest in the history of NCAA wrestling. He's a 2008 Olympian. He's an MMA champion. There's nothing this guy can't do. We are very pleased to have with us Ben Askren. Gentlemen, welcome.
Hey.
Really excited to have you guys here.
How's it going?
Going great. Before we get started, I need a little commercial interlude. We would like to thank Ambit Energy and Team Global Energy for making this webinar possible. And while I'm at it, as usual, we have Coach Frank Baumgartner, who will continue to keep us rolling and monitor questions you might have. So if you have a topic you'd like to ask Terry or Ben, just type it in the chat box right down here, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. And I'd like to remind everybody out there, there's no such thing as a dumb question. Unless it's really, really dumb, and then we'll probably ask it anyway. But that's for Tom Dolly. Just throwing that out there, Tom. So let's get started. Coaches, great to have you both here tonight. Ben, thanks for joining us.
No problem. My pleasure.
I know it's good to be on, and I'm glad that Ben that you could join us tonight. We go back a long ways. I think the first time I met Ben was he was on the cadet national team for the state of Wisconsin, and at the time I was the state cadet coach, and we met him at camp. And the thing that I remember about him, and I think it's really a huge part of all the success he's had along the way, is just that he's always had fun with the sport. Right? And I always remember him having fun in practices, at camps, at competitions. There was always, he brought the passion every day, right? And it didn't matter what we were doing. He had his own way of doing things, but he was a team, but he was a team player, and he was always happy to be there, right? And I think that goes a long ways. When you love being on that wrestling mat, amazing things can happen. And I think that, you can talk technique or anything else, but the one thing that I really, I remember about Ben at a young age was he was just always so passionate about the sport of wrestling. So anyways.
Well, what I loved, Ben, is, and I classify you as an innovator. There's innovators out there. I consider Wade Chalice was an innovator.
Yeah, he was.
Was an innovator. You are right there with them. I mean, what a great list to be there. But you changed the course. There were guys that did upside down stuff, and there's probably 100 of them that I'm gonna miss. But big guys never did it. And once you started going upside down, and man, it was the world of wrestling changed, and amazing.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, so I guess I'll start off with Terry gave me some of the best advice I have ever had in my entire life. I never told you that, so thank you. I appreciate it. And
I'm waiting to hear what it is before I thank
you. Well. So on said cadet team that you mentioned earlier, and I probably I've told so many, probably 100 times how this has affected me. I went 0-2 that year actually at Fargo, and I had trained really hard, and I wasn't very good in wrestling, and by this point I was starting to get significantly better at wrestling, where I really wasn't anticipating going 0-2. I thought I probably wasn't where I was going to All-American or anything, but I probably should have won some matches. And one of the things I did was I overthought things by a lot. I really, really, really overthought it. And, I know you talked to me after the tournament. You said that you were the same way. And that now I recognize these personalities very easily. It's that obsessive, hyper-competitive type of personality who just can't stop thinking about stuff. And I overthought everything, and I just wore myself out, and I performed terribly because of it. And I remember you told me you were the same way, and you know that I think you like talk about fishing or something, which that's not for me. You know, me is like telling jokes or playing disc golf or something. But it really, I mean, honestly, that like helped me so much throughout the next. I mean, I competed for 20 years. I didn't think I would, but I competed for 20 years after that, and I used that. I mean, every single time I competed, that was in the back of my mind.
Well, let's stay on that because we have high school coaches, high school student wrestlers, parents. Um, let's walk through that, and that's a huge thing. Overthinking.
Yeah.
I don't care what sport it is, especially at the high school level. And here you are. You know, let's stay on that topic.
Yeah. Well, I think certain personalities are really prone to it. And like I mentioned, I think Terry's probably similar to me. Really planning type, hyper competitive, type A personality. And if you let your mind go, it could just go and go and go and go and go and go until, you know, essentially you wear yourself out, right? And you're worrying about all these things that don't really matter. And when you step on the mat, the only thing that really matters is how do you score points? How do you win the match? And so I learned to, I mean, this is literally from you. I learned to not even think, for me, and everyone's a little bit different, but not even think about the wrestling match till I'm out there wrestling. Like literally not till I'm about to walk on the mat, I'll slap hands. Okay, we'll go. But prior to that, I'm not thinking about it. And, you know, obviously in the practice room, that's different, right? And if I'm training, that's different. But when we're talking about literal competition, the day of, an hour before, I'm keeping my mind off of the subject at hand.
Yeah, for sure. I think you see it a lot, you know, where you'll be, you know how our competitions are. That wrestling is known for like 12-hour competitions, right? I mean,
Yep.
So people in the gymnasium for 10, 12 hours, and maybe there's 3 matches during that day, but that kid has been wrestling all day long in his mind, you know. He's wrestled for like maybe 12 minutes during the day, but he's literally been wrestling for hours in his mind and wearing himself out, right? And it happens a lot that we compete in our minds and we keep going through things. By the time the match starts, we're so worn out mentally, we have no juice left in us. And I think that, you know, as much as you can, you've got to get away from it, get away from that competitiveness. However, maybe it's someone that's sitting with you talking, maybe thinking about something else, maybe you're reading a book, maybe you're, you know, putting your headphones on and zoning out, but it's important to get away from it. You've got to take your mind away from the actual competition itself. So when it is time to compete, you can step up with some fire behind you and do your job. And you know, I see it a lot. You know, you see kids, they're walking around or pacing around competitions and they're nervous all day long, just thinking about it too much. And really, you can't do anything about it until it happens, right? So you step on the mat and they blow the whistle.
Yeah, actually, you know, I got so obsessive about this, Terry. It's funny. I've never thanked you because it was so impactful. I fought in Asia for 4 years. I would literally fly a friend, someone who I just enjoyed conversing with. I would literally fly them to Asia every single time, just so I just keep relaxed. You know, have someone there that was, you know, fun for me to hang out with. I would pay for someone to go to Asia every single time I went.
See, now that's interesting because did this carry through even as you were winning these championships and moving through all the ranks of all the great things that you've accomplished? Did you have these same kind of feelings? Because again, I want to bring it back to the high school kids and let them know, you know, what is normal and what is, you know, how you get over those kind of things.
Yeah. Well, I know. I don't think so. I think I really, I mean, there's very few competitions in my life where I think I would say I competed suboptimally. You know, so after obviously that Fargo and that was my freshman year. I don't know, 15 years old. Yeah, 15. I took that to heart and I really started honing in on how do I compete the best, right? And it really became a part of me. And so, you know, I would say by the mid, you know, my junior year, senior year of high school, I feel like I was a great competitor. So I always say competition's a skill, right? Wrestling is a skill. Obviously, You need to know how to wrestle, but competing is a skill. You could be a great wrestler and be a terrible competitor. You could be a great wrestler and be a great competitor, and that can have a huge difference. And some people are great wrestlers and terrible competitors, and everyone always wonders why they can't get the most out of themselves. But it's just because they literally they haven't realized competing is a skill and they suck at that skill. And so I feel like I honed in on it a lot by my junior and senior year of high school, and then so I feel like that's something that I'd say was one of my strong points all the way through. I mean, there's like really, like I said, only a couple of matches where I could say that for whatever reason, I wasn't, I didn't compete. And, unfortunately, the one of those is Ivan Fandora, the second match, the only match I lost at the Olympics. I felt the pressure to kind of be more aggressive than I probably should have been in the second period and give a few easy scores. And I didn't really stick to the game plan that I was going to. And that's like, one of the very few times I didn't feel like I didn't compete, optimally. And so, yeah, I feel like once Terry talked about that when I was 15, it was really something I took to heart and really something I feel like I got good at as I got older.
And I think it's important. I like how you said it and how you framed it. You can be a good wrestler, but not a great competitor. And I think the difference is wrestling's not a thinking sport, right? It's a if you're out there thinking that you're way too rigid and you're like a robot and this and that, and you've got to be in a reactive type state and just reacting and letting your body take over, on all the drills that you've done and all the work put in for hours and hours and hours. And once the match starts, really the thinking is over with at that point, right? I mean, you've got to let it go and flow. And I think, looking back on your career and all the matches, that you've won and lost. I mean, you really flowed. I mean, you just let yourself flow out there.
Yeah.
And I think that was the exciting part about watching you wrestle, because you didn't know where it was going to go. Right? You didn't take things to different places than 99.9% of the people would take them. And at the sidelines, you're sitting there cringing like, oh. You just were like Alex said, it's just an innovator in that. But a lot of it was letting yourself free yourself up mentally to do that, right? And not be put in a box. I think the thing is you weren't going to be put, back when I was around you during your career, was you weren't going to be put inside that, right? You had your own way of doing things, and as long as they worked, it was fine, right? If they didn't work, talk about it. But anyways.
Yeah, well, I want to stay on that. I love that you are a pinner. To me, there's nothing more important, because if you know how to pin, you are never out of a match. Ever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And to at that level, I mean, I'm proud of. We have 700 pinners, 100 pinners at my school, and I'm proud of that. Proud of that, because you're supposed to pin, and for a guy like you to have 91 pins at the NCAA Division I level is just fantastic. And it's a lost art, I think. Well, it's coming back, but it was lost.
It is.
Yeah, and I think that you were a big reason for it coming back. And so talk about pinning, and like, do you do something specific? How do you approach that world of pinning? Or is it you just find yourself in an upside down position and you lock onto somebody and you have superhuman strength and they cry?
Well, yeah. So I do think it's coming back. Although tilts are, and this is from a coach's perspective, tilts are super effective, score a lot of points. Are really easy to teach kids. They're relatively safe, in my opinion, and they don't pin anybody, right? So I teach a lot of tilts, even though I never used them in my entire life ever. And so, I got great at cradles, and I can cradle from like 1,000 different positions. And I think that was obviously one of the reasons that helped me pin so much. If you look at my career, a lot of them are pins. But then, a part of it is creative thinking. Like Terry said, I'm not going to put in a box. And so, I tell this story. I always tell this story at camps. I learned a move in 1995 at a camp I was at. It was funny because it was a Greco camp. And the move was called the Durlocker. And I believe it was because Lindsay Durlocker made it up at some point in time. And I never used it, ever. And so in 2006, which is my junior year of college, I'm having this problem. Everyone knows I'm going to cradle them, right? And so they're flattening out. And it's like, it's because obviously it's a lot of them are dual meet matches. Yeah. And so, okay, I want to pin them, and I can't pin them because they're flat. How do I pin them? And so it's like, okay. And I was just racking my brain over and over and over again. Okay, how do I get this done? Right? I need to figure this out. And I remember this move from that I learned in 1995, which is called the Durlocker. I did rename it the Assassin, and I'm like, you know what? I think this thing might work because they're going flat. If I cross face them, they kind of bury their head here, so I can't cross face them. So their head and their arm are connected, and and so. Yeah, I figured it out. I made the Assassin work. And it became probably my best pinning combination my last 2 years of college because everyone was going so flat. It's like, so I tell that story. I'm like, think about this, guys. This is right now we're 2020. You learn to move in 2020 and you don't use it one time till 2031. Like, can you imagine? Like, that's like how much attention you need to be paying at camp that, something sparks 11 years later. And you think, oh, what about that move? So that's why I tell kids they need to pay attention to everything, even if they're not going to use it tomorrow.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I know Terry and I have talked about pinning quite a bit. I think that, again, in every situation, because you can be losing by, as long as you're not getting teched, you're 1 point away. And I always go back to, I don't even remember what year it was, but
Josh Lambert, Rob Roan.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Even Jeff was talking about the next match, and all of a sudden he does the Roan roll,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's great. Yeah. So Frank, I see you got a question right there.
Yeah. So talking about high school athletes here, Matt was asking that he's got a wrestler who's interested in the Sunkist RTC.
Mm-hmm.
But with Fargo not happening, she doesn't meet the qualifications, things like that. So, as we were talking about before, being involved with the Wisconsin RTC, do you think RTCs are going to adjust at all with this pandemic and how to qualify athletes to come train with them?
Yeah. I don't know. Obviously, that'd be a wrestling thing, not a me thing, right? So I don't know what they're going to do. So, I don't know how all the RTC works. And actually, I just interviewed Brandon Slay a couple weeks ago for the Rooters Wrestling podcast. And, he was telling me out there. So in Wisconsin, we move one of the RTC practices like way later at night so that the high school kids from all over the state can attend without having to leave school early or anything. And they get to work out with the college kids, and that's great for them. That being said, it's not the RTC because, it's in one spot and there's people who are way far away. It's not really a primary training location for a lot of high school kids, right? And that's we run Askren Wrestling Academy, and a lot of kids will train here and they'll go to the RTC the one day a week that they're allowed to. But it's not, I don't see it as a primary training location. So obviously I think, you probably should find a gym or a school or something like that on the side. I know, like Slay mentioned, he said, within, I think it's like an hour, there's the New Jersey RTC, Penn RTC, and Lehigh Valley RTC, right? So certain kids out there, because of the proximity, can maybe make that work. But, I think that's obviously tough for everyone. And obviously, until we know exactly what's going to happen with Corona and people having state tournaments, national tournaments, we don't know what's going to happen. So I think it's probably too early to make those judgments.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. I think there'll definitely be some adjustments with it. RTCs they're a great option for kids in those areas. And, I think if you're a college coach, you've got to have an RTC if you're going to stay relevant, right? Because most kids are going to not most kids, but the top kids are going to, universities because they want to know that they can have world and Olympic dreams there, right? And finish their careers there. So you have to lay out that option for them, that if you come to, whether it's the University of Wisconsin or, Arizona State or Fresno State or Iowa or whatever. I mean, you've got to lay out those options that, you can come here and it's a one-stop shop. And I think that, the hard thing is for college coaches is it basically brings on a whole nother job, right? I mean, there's a whole fundraising piece to that. And, now you're not only fundraising for the college program, but you're fundraising for the RTC and those kids, and fundraising for, elite level athletes to stay and train there and make some money. So it's definitely a lot of work, but I think to be relevant at the college level this day and age, it's definitely, it's a must thing, to have a good RTC going and having athletes around your college kids, right? I mean, and that's the real benefit, I think, for a college coach is they got, elite level athletes around their, college kids are learning the ropes, and you got elite level people that are doing that job every day and living the life. And all of a sudden you create an environment that is, building success, through and through, right? And by learning how to live and learning how to compete and, learning what it takes to be a champion. So I think that, that if just a coach is giving those messages, that gets old really quick. But when they have their heroes in front of them every day doing it and they can see it, it definitely adds to, a quicker process of people picking things up. So.
Right. So Ben, let me ask you this, because as a high school coach, I admire the approach that you have and the success you've had in the coaching realm. So with your wrestling academy, and I know you've helped out with Wisconsin with the collegiate program, and then with the RTC, those are vastly different situations that those athletes are in. So how are you approaching, I guess, the differences and the similarities between all those different situations?
I coach all the way down to our 5 through 9-year-old. We call it ninjas in training class, which is, it's like we're doing the same 4 moves every single practice. Relatively, they're terrible. They're never wrestled. And obviously, RTC, certain people are trying to make Olympic teams, and so I don't know. To me, you just coach to your group. You know who you're working with, and you just learn to say things in different manners. I don't treat Seth Gross the same way I treat a 5-year-old who's never wrestled. That would be absolutely idiotic. So yeah, I think I love wrestling. I'm very knowledgeable about wrestling, and I try to coach to the level I'm teaching at. When I'm teaching little kids, I teach, we teach literally an arm drag, a sprawl, a double leg, and that's kind of it. Like not much.
Yeah, but I think that's the beauty of it too, right? Because this is part science, right? Where you can bring out the textbooks and start showing, techniques as we've learned them. But I think the part of it at a young age is helping kids be creative and let them be the artist, right?
Yes.
Basic principles. Give them some basic principles to succeed. What a stance is and this and that, and how to move a little bit, but you've got to let them be the artist, and I think so many times we get bogged down with trying to show every single move, every single situation. And, the reality of it is if you showed the same move to all 4 of us, we're all going to do it different because we have different body types. We have different, lengths and leverages and strengths and it's going to look different. And I think so many times we try to make everything look the same. And I think that's a mistake in our part. We've got to step back a little bit and let kids play a little bit and develop their own style.
Yeah. And I think the other thing for me, actually, someone told me Coach Gable said this, which I can't confirm or deny that he said it, but and I use this quote or this thought process a lot. But someone said, how do you keep it fresh after winning all these titles and winning over and over and over again? And he said, I look at their parents and I realize how much the kid matters to their parents more than anyone else out here. And I try to, think about it that way. And so I think about it the same way, whether it's a 5-year-old I'm dealing with or with someone trying to make the Olympic team. not everyone is trying to get the exact same thing out of it, but that doesn't mean I can't help everybody, right? And I can make that 5 or 6 year old, if I can help them a little bit, and whether it's maybe just, believing themselves or finding themselves to be able to be capable. If I can maybe, get the high school kid to the state tournament where he didn't think he'd get to, it's like, maybe he's not trying to get a college scholarship. Maybe he's just trying to make state. So what, right? That's success. And those kids are going to remember that. And those kids are going to remember how you made them feel and what being capable and being successful felt like. And so I think that's also important to remember.
Right. Well, that's a great comment and a way to look at that. And so if Coach didn't say that, I think he'll be okay with you. So before we move on, just quickly, what are you doing for your athletes to keep them active during these times of social distancing?
Yeah, I mean, you can't really do anything, right? I'm encouraged. Well, so we're going to open up June 1st. Wisconsin kind of just got the green light a couple weeks ago. They got the green light what is today? I don't even know what today is.
I don't know.
The quarantine.
Thursdays with Terry.
Okay, Thursday. Wednesday of last week, we got the green light, and we figured with wrestling we would wait a little bit to get started, but we're going to get started June 1st. So, we just encourage kids to, obviously they were all wrestling on their own, so we encouraged them to do so. And, a couple of our kids decided to run a marathon. It was kind of, we didn't push anybody. We said kind of whatever you want to do, go do it. We're not going to give any guidance. Hopefully you guys choose to do something to make yourselves better. But we, obviously at this point, we can't force anything on anybody.
Same thing for the older guys, the guys that are, looking at world team members.
They are, but Bono and Reader, obviously, they're seeing those guys on a very much more regular basis. And that being said, those dudes are locked out of the room. They literally can't go in the. I mean, they're literally not allowed to go in the wrestling room, or they're not allowed to go in their office. I mean, I'm thinking for I want to say till July 31st, something totally crazy, July 31st or something.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it's the same in Colorado right now. The training center's completely shut down. Right, there's no access to it at all, and we haven't been there. I haven't been there in 8 weeks or whatever it is. And,
Dang.
but right now, like yesterday, for the first time, we had the group together outside, and we did a run, a running workout together.
Nice.
Oh, there was no, it was social distancing. Everyone's like 6-8 feet apart, and
I'd have been in the back.
We had our strength coach. They're putting us, strength conditioning coach, they're putting us through conditioning workout, but it was, the good thing was it was good just to have everyone together again, right? I mean, it was like they've been apart and in their homes, and just to be together, just to have that, see the face to face, I think it just helped emotionally a lot. It's got them excited again, but yeah, as far as wrestling, we're pretty sure.
Are they giving you guys a timeline of when you guys get to train again?
No, they have said that at the training center, it won't be, wrestling will not be one of the first sports to be brought back for sure. I mean, it'll probably be one of the last because of it's the emphasis of social distancing.
Yeah.
So we're on the complete opposite spectrum. So I don't see it's going to happen there anytime soon.
You just tell the girls to buy their own mats and brawl with each other at home, and then say, "I didn't tell you to do that. I just suggested it."
Yeah. Well, whatever's happening, I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes.
Right. Hey, Frank, let's take a short break and then come back. I got a couple of questions to ask Ben.
Yeah, absolutely here. So we just want to take a quick moment to talk about the organizations that are able to put this webinar series on.
Hey folks, it's Rich Bender here at USA Wrestling. We hope that everybody out there is staying safe and healthy. Thanks for taking the time to get on the webinar with Coach Steiner today. I hope the information he gives you will be helpful as we all deal with the pandemic and how we can keep focused and make the most of this time. Our partnership with Ambit Energy provides unique opportunities for USA Wrestling members to save money on their energy bills and possibly even generate funds for the wrestling program. If you want to learn more about how you can get involved, Coach Steiner will give you that information. Thanks again, and stay safe and healthy and focused.
Hi, my name's Tom Valley. I'm a recently retired wrestling coach. Coached 40 years from the elementary to the high school level, either as an assistant or as a head coach. I served 25 years with the Indiana State Wrestling Association, 13 years as a kids director, 5 years as the vice chair of the organization, 5 as the women's director. About 4 years ago, Olympic coach Terry Steiner showed us and introduced us to Am Energy and showed us how we could save a little bit of money on a gas bill we were already paying. And if we referred 15 friends and family, we could possibly get it for free. In a short amount of time, we were able to do that. And for about 3 years now, we've been getting our gas supply for free. Since then, all right, we introduced an Amish guy to the same program. And he has a woodworking factory, and he was able to start saving money on a gas bill he was already paying. And since then, referred friends and family, and now he gets his gas for free. He just was real excited this week when he got his gas bill. It was $948.58 for the gas portion of the bill. Amma Energy sent him a check, all right, for the exact same amount, $948.58. What's really great is the Penn Wrestling Club, where I was coaching at, gets a little piece of all those gas bills for all those friends and family that we recommended the savings to. So it's been quite amazing for us. It's been quite amazing for my buddy who has a woodworking factory, and quite amazing for the Penn Wrestling Club.
So this webinar series we've been able to do with Terry here, Thursdays with Terry. Obviously tonight, we're pleased to have Ben on. Next Thursday night, May 28th, we'll have Randy Couture, and then June 4th, we will have legendary coach Dan Gable on. Okay, so those of you that were looking for the website to go register, I apologize for that. We had some notice this week that we had to make some changes, and therefore, we had obviously the technical issues. But look for our website to be coming back. It'll be teamglobalenergy.com, where you can get registered for those webinars, as well as become free members to Team Global Energy, where all these webinars will be accessible for free on demand. So, Alex, go right ahead.
So, Ben,
Yes.
looking at your transition from, the MMA, it's hot out there, everybody's looking to do it. Tell us how you made the transition and the benefits to those younger people of training as a high school and college wrestler, and how that transitioned over.
Well, I know that wrestling is the most successful background. I mean, I think any way you would slice it or try to run it, that you're going to find out the most wrestlers are successful at mixed martial arts. So it's a great background. When I got into it, it was a little bit before it got super popular. It was kind of on the rise there. And, I saw teammates and opponents that I had been wrestling with were starting to have a gigantic amount of success in it. And it always just, I don't know, I was drawn to, I am still drawn to combat sports. I love them. And so I think that was it. I love combat sports, and I wanted to give it a shot. And after I lost in 2008 Olympics, I figured this was the best opportunity to go try, because if I don't go do it now, I mean, by the time I got done with 2012, then I would have been 28 years old. And I knew that would have been kind of getting older. And so I went and did it, and I enjoyed it. I was fairly good at it. And I ended up fighting a lot longer than almost a decade. And I did not think that would happen, but that was what happened.
So where was the area you needed the most work on when you went into MMA? I mean,
yeah. Obviously the striking, and that was, something that, people, I went 19-0. I was undefeated for a decade, so I didn't have a lot of issues with it. But in the last, and obviously the one fight I got knee, and then Damien and Maya, we were on our feet for a little bit, and I was doing decent in striking, but not great. But the grappling came really, really easily to me. The jiu-jitsu was fairly simple for me to figure out because my wrestling style was so similar. So definitely the striking, because the wrestling and the grappling came pretty easy.
So those kids out there, because I, as a high school teacher and coach, everybody's talking MMA, and a lot of them don't want to hear about the wrestling part of it. And you can say it, but for those kids out there, those coaches, what might you suggest to that coach to say to that young person that might sway them besides what we normally say?
Oh, I never, ever, 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 ever in 100 years pushed the MMA angle. I think anyone who does MMA for a profession is an idiot.
No, the opposite. They want to go there.
So no, I would advise them strongly against that, and I would and I do. You know what? I did it. I enjoy it. I would say I was one of the lucky ones who was able to make a whole bunch of money and not have to get my ass kicked too many times. You know, I won them. I was just 19-2, so I won the majority. MMA is a terrible profession.
Right.
You could really do something else, and I could break it down much further if you guys really would like me to about the payment and everything else. But yeah, I like. There's very, very, very few people who I recommend to do MMA. Corey Anderson's one. He's having a great success at the UFC. And the second guy is Jordan Newman, a guy who wrestled for me. And he's one of those guys. He won 2 Division III national titles. He was going to fight no matter what. So it's like, well, I should probably just encourage him to fight rather than fight him on it. But yeah, most people I strongly discourage from doing so.
Right. Okay. So you like combative sports. Do you feed the yin and yang of your when you do disc golf? Is that what?
Yeah. Well, I was just playing before this. I got a few disc golfers in town this week. I'm gonna throw some disc golf. I love it. I wish I had more time for it, but with 3 kids and 5 wrestling academies, I don't find nearly enough time to play.
Right. That's
Colorado Springs has some beautiful courses out there. I don't know if Terry gets out to play at all. With that tan, maybe he's been out throwing some discs.
No, I've seen Terry throw a disc. It's like hitting a volleyball. See? Stick to wrestling.
Yeah, anything with a disc or a ball, I'm not so good at.
No, that's great. Hey, so
on the golf course.
What's that?
If I ever go play golf, or when I do, like I get my money's worth every time.
So last week we had Bill Zadok on. Obviously, Terry is a younger twin, and how did it play? How did it play for you with your brother? Tell us about that.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because I think my whole perspective on it now is changing because now I have 3 kids and I watch the dynamic between the olders and the older and the younger. And, you know, obviously I see how the interactions now retrospectively looking, say 30 years back, you know, how it worked out. But I would like to think I was probably a dick sometimes, but I'd like to think I was a pretty good older brother. Trying to be fairly supportive, but I know Max really kind of excelled when he was left to have some of his own space and flap his wings and fly. He probably excelled even more.
Yeah, with your relationship, the battles, the positives and negatives, best friends to worst enemies, back to best friends. Do you have that dynamic?
No, I wouldn't say. I mean, we never really had hard times where we didn't get along. I mean, obviously, there's that time. I'm sure anyone who has a sibling is like, Max, WTF? Let's go. Let's get this freaking going. You know, and then and then we're good, right? I mean, we own the wrestling academies together, so we talk on a almost every single day basis, and obviously we don't agree on everything. Obviously, there's some big points of contention. So sometimes we fight, and then okay, well, we fought and we figured out what the answer was, and now let's go.
Again, we're gearing this towards the parents that might have those twins, okay, and the coach that has siblings, 3 of them, and they're all circling around. How would you just suggestion on how they're dealing with it, with their
for parents? Oh man. Oh, I'm still trying to figure that one out.
Yeah, right.
Well, I mean, I'd say sure. My oldest one is more like me. She's very much more domineering. She's really aggressive. And my second one is, I don't want to say more passive, but she kind of goes with the flow a little more. And so obviously the older one has great intentions, but she's really like, on the younger one, and it doesn't always turn out well. So it's like, hey, Alex, freaking chill out a little bit. Like, Annie, just give Annie some time, let her do her thing, relax a little bit. And, And then obviously now Ozzy's 2, so he's kind of starting to get his own personality. So now I'm watching how that dynamic is playing. So man, yeah, it's as a parent, I think it's almost more challenging as a parent than it is as a wrestling coach, because as a wrestling coach, you have a very specific focused area that you need to get these guys moving in the right direction. And as a parent, it's like there's so many different, is it school? Is it friends? Is it our relationship with them? Is it their relationship with each other? Is it how disciplined they're being? Is it how hardworking they're being? Which characteristics do I want my kids to really be, right? Because, for example, I can beat them down. I can yell at them a lot, and they will be very docile, and they will listen to me, and they'll, and some parents really love that. But I kind of like it when they don't listen to me. I kind of like it when they take some initiative and do something crazy. I kind of like it, So I got to be like, okay, listen, don't do too much crazy stuff and like kill yourself over there. But I kind of like it that you went and did that, So it's like, as a parent, you got to find this balance of which characteristics do you really want them to have. I think it's really challenging because you're trying to watch the way they interact with each other.
Sure. That's awesome. That's terrific.
Yeah.
And how old are they, Ben?
I got 7, 4 going on 5, and then 2.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because Frank, what are yours? You got the same kind of. How old are you?
I've got a 3-year-old, or she'll be 3 here in a couple weeks, and then we've got another one who's my wife's due in 2.5 weeks.
Oh man.
Second. So.
Terry, how old is Raven now?
19.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, she's gonna be an adult almost.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So I got.
Times, but I agree with Ben. When your kids are growing up, you want them to be obedient, but you don't want to squash their spirit, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That spirit and that life to them, and that's the hard balance, because sometimes it's mixed signals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Them, and it's but I think they need to be respectful, but to have some life and spirit to them, right? And
There was no squashing Raven's spirit.
No,
There's no.
Obedient. That was the word I was thinking of that I couldn't think of. Obedient. Some parents love their kids to be obedient, and obviously, like, it annoys you when they won't listen to you, but at the same time, you don't want them to always listen to you. Then it's no fun.
Yeah. So, Frank, I see we got a couple questions here.
Yeah.
Dinner. I got a couple more minutes. I got to run to dinner, guys. It's 6:45.
Yep.
7:45. So.
Oh, 6:45 my time. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So Marty's got one here. He says, so what are your thoughts on a mature athlete that may not be emotionally ready for the next level? Compare that to the opposite athlete utilizing a play, drill, play practice model.
Wait, so read this question one more time.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on a mature athlete, but maybe not as emotionally ready for the next level?
Okay.
Compare that to the opposite athlete utilizing a play, drill, play practice model.
That sounds like some kind of really hard algebra that I don't know about. So yeah. So mature athlete, I don't know if that means like an adult or like, right? Mature could mean a lot of different things. But I'm not emotionally ready. And then I'm not really sure what the play, drill, play. I don't know what that even means. I don't know that terminology.
Probably a lot less structured drill and a lot more. Let's go. Yeah.
So I'll tell you. I mean, just our general philosophy at Askren Wrestling Academy. And we use a lot of play wrestling, but we don't really use it in the beginning, because in the beginning the kids are so bad. The 5-year-old, they don't know what the hell they're doing. So letting them play wrestle will just turn into some type of disaster. So in the beginning we do a drilling, and then really, really very small structured live. And then obviously, as they get older, we make the drills harder. We teach them more. And then really, that middle school, we try to start letting them do some of the play wrestling where they're figuring it out on their own, where they're developing their own style. And then by the time, especially like our more advanced high school athletes, I would say a decent portion of each practice is sparring. It's, hey, one guy shoots a high crotch, wrestle from there. One guy shoots a low single, wrestle from there. Get in the seatbelt position, work from there. Get in for headlock, work from there. And so by the time, we have a solid high school athlete, we're doing a lot of sparring with them and just getting them to figure out what they like to do from each position.
Now, with that being said, Ben, I know sparring and play wrestling is really coming on strong here in the U.S. But what if you were to define sparring, okay, and how you guys teach it? How do you explain to someone who has no idea what it is?
Well, there's not necessarily one definition, right? I mean, the easiest way is just, hey, if we go live wrestling, that's trying as hard as you can. That's 100%. If we go drilling, that's giving very very little resistance. So we're talking 0 to 10%, right? And there's this whole gray area in the middle, right? Below 100 and above 10 that you need to utilize, right? And so like my good high school athletes, I can literally say, offensive guy, I want you going 70%. Defensive guy, I want you going 40% because I want this drill for the offensive person, right? Or person who has the seatbelt, you're going 70, other guy's going 20 because I want the seatbelt guy to win, right? I mean, so my better guys, I can even do that type of stuff with, so I can really make it very, very focused and very, very specific on what I want them to get out of it. So yeah, I think there's that whole dynamic between 110 that we have to play with. Hey, guys, I'm sorry, I got to run to dinner. My wife.
That's okay. You know what? Thank you so much for getting
Appreciate
on.
it, guys.
We really appreciate it. You're the best.
Thanks a lot, guys.
All right, thanks, Ben.
Thank you, Terry. Peace.
Okay. So back to the sparring piece. I would say that there has to be that middle ground, right? As soon as someone knows the technique and understands the technique, they still have to get the feel for it, right? Conceptually, they know it and they understand what you're saying and where positions should be, but then they have to feel it. And if you go right to live wrestling, a lot of times they're not ready for that yet. They're just going to get squashed and probably discouraged with it. And a lot of times you can hurt an athlete more than helping them. They've gone from, drilling right to live wrestling. So I think that sparring piece is a huge learning piece. And that is very, very important. And you'll see it, overseas, you'll see it most times, in the practice room. You'll see a lot of sparring, way more than we do here. And it's one of the things that we've really tried to incorporate with the national teams a lot more over the last 10 years or so. I would say 10, 15 years. We've really tried to put more of that in there because I think we learn it so much better than, just like Ben was saying, we can put them in a situation and say, hey, we want wrestler A to be successful, but wrestler B, we want you to give them challenges and struggles and hiccups along the way. And let them find their way through it. And if you're 50%, 70%, 80%, that's where the athletes have to kind of feel that for themselves. But if you just say that you want wrestler A to be successful at the end of it, they'll find their ways through that. And maybe you can say, okay, we need a little bit more resistance, a little bit more, give us a little bit more. If you were going 40, let's go 70 right now and give us a little bit more. But it's a huge learning tool for us right now, and we do it a lot. Every practice has some sparring in it.
Yeah, and those numbers are really important because what it does is gives an excuse to give up points, especially in when you have a room that you have egos, especially at the Olympic Training Center when nobody wants to give up points. But if you direct them to, hey, you're going 70%, they're going 90%, okay, because I need them to be successful so they can feel what it feels like to get that actual takedown. And so, but no one wants to give up any points ever. So then it becomes this kind of stuff. So by going 70-40 or 90-70 or whatever, you're giving them an opportunity, an excuse to give up those points. Then it doesn't count against their internal scoreboard and their ego.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you just say go out and play, there's going to be one wrestler that's wrestling live the whole time, right? Because they don't want to give up any points, right? And then so you have to put those parameters with it, so both people are really understanding their role during that drill, right? Otherwise, they're both fighting against each other maybe too much. And then there has to be time obviously in the wrestling room where it's full-on wrestling, right? Where we're going both people are trying to win the situation too. But I think when you're progressing technique along, you need to progress along with some sparring in there at some point. Right? So,
Yeah. No,
And-
fantastic.
Good questions right in there.
Back to one of the other questions, and Ben answered on it too. With I think it was Marty's question about that, bringing an athlete along when, an athlete that may be mature, and when is the next level to go to that. I just think every athlete is different. Yeah, I don't think you can put that in in a square box. I just don't. You have to understand the athlete. The biggest thing is, I think if we try too much too soon, that's when you're going to drive kids away from the sport, right? If you get too technical and you throw too much information at them and all of a sudden they're not having fun. Wrestling should be a fun sport where they're enjoying what they're doing when they're out there. Now, they're not going to have fun either if they're losing every match. So they're having there, right? And so, but you have to bring it along at a certain point, right? And you have to keep it fun, right? And I think it's really just reading your athletes of when they're ready to go into that next level and when they're not, right? So.
I feel bad that Ben didn't get a chance to answer this question from Matt, because I think is a great question. You said the leg pass is not a great scramble. As wrestling has evolved past it, where do you see scrambling going technique-wise? That is a great question.
Well, it's definitely changed, right? If you look back to the days when I was in college to where it is to college wrestling right now, it's a different sport. I mean, it looks like a different sport. There's so much more diving between the legs and rolling underneath. And, I mean, it's different from when I was coaching it 18 years ago, right? I mean, it's a lot different.
Sure.
It's a lot different. The collegiate style of wrestling is, it's different going to watch the NCAA championships and the different things that they're having to focus on. For sure, it's different game.
Yeah, I would have been curious to hear what he had to say on that, huh, Frank?
Yeah, no, without a doubt. I mean, you talk about NCAA level adjusting and being a different sport, everything trickles down, and now you're seeing high school athletes that are not just hitting, leg passes, but that's their main defense, and they're extremely proficient at it, and you see them so efficient on their top game with tilts, and you need one takedown. One takedown, you can end a match by tech fall just through tilts.
Sure.
You see that routinely at the high school level, and it is a different sport. And, even just in 10 years I've been a head coach, like you had to do the same thing. You have to evolve with the times too. So it's definitely changing. So Terry, while you're on here, Matt had one I thought was pretty interesting. Terry, how do you combat the female athlete triad, eating disorders, low bone density? How do you address that with your team?
That's a good question. I mean, we talk a lot about with the athletes about having a healthy relationship with food, right? I mean, and really understanding what, if you're eating right, if you're, it can't be.
Terry, you're breaking up a little.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
I think that, we talk about with our national team a lot about having a healthy relationship with food, right? And making sure we're looking at how, what we're really trying to do. Are we trying to lose weight, or are we trying to be strong? And I think everyone is strong and competitive and fit, right? And having a great fitness level. And I think so many times, I think the eating disorder comes from, having to make weight, right? But I think for so many times, and I hope it's erasing, we're losing that part of the sport with day of weigh-ins and things like that. The drastic dehydration and those kind of things are really, people are understanding that when you have a 2-hour weigh-in, you can't compete well, right? And you have to be taking care of your body and fueling your body the right way in order for it to perform and compete. So I think that, just we really our dietitians really spend a lot of time with the athletes on, doing things the right way. If we have to drop, maybe we have to drop 6, 8, 10 pounds, but that's going to be done over a matter of weeks, not a matter of days or hours, right? I mean, that's we're changing our body, and we're using our lifting and our conditioning and all of that stuff along with it, right? It's not just a one stop shop, I guess. We're putting all of those things together, and all of our performance team, and our dietitians, our strength conditioning coaches, our sports psychologists, they're all working together to help athletes through these situations. But that's how we're doing it here. But I understand that not everyone has that at their disposal, right? That's what we're using. We utilize team a lot.
With that being said, Terry, I know USA Wrestling, you in particular, have really pushed with your athletes, your nutritionists, and they're fantastic. I mean, they're just terrific people. And for those of us that are in the high school setting, is there some way to get a hold of the information that you guys send out to your athletes? Is there some way, because we don't have a nutritionist, but boy, it's the information that you're getting. And if it's coming from someone other than the coach that tells you need to do your homework, you need to be respectful to your parents, you need to do this, you need to do that. And so now nutrition flows in. Do you have an avenue for coaches to go to? I know that when Emma was with you, you had a fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, with our national teams, yeah, I mean, we do, right? With our U15 and our cadet and our junior teams, I mean, we always have that as a part of our training, right? Just as important as it is to learn how to do a double leg and a single leg, right? It's important to know how to live the right lifestyle, all right? And that includes diet and exercise and everything, right? And taking care of yourself mentally as well, right? So we do have that for our national teams. For just our normal, high school kid out there, or USA Wrestling, members, I'm sure that information is in our coach's education, part of our education program, and on the USA Wrestling website. I mean, if you dig through that website, there's a lot of information there.
Yeah, but maybe we can spotlight that for next week and just bring that up, and maybe have an area that they can go to. So maybe we can encourage.
Sure. I can do some homework on that and give a better answer on where some.
Yeah, we'll put it right in the chat. We'll put where we can locate that. And if it's not capable, maybe that's something we look to do and make these viewers give an opportunity to have access to something like that. That'd be great.
Because really, if this is going to be a part of, and hopefully it is, right? Hopefully this is something that's a part of our young athletes' lives for a long time, right? We don't want them for 2 or 3 years. We want them for a lifetime, right? We want them to be wrestlers until they're done competing, and then we want them to be still involved as coaches and giving back to the sport, or as referees, or supporters of the program, or however, right? I mean, we want them involved for a lifetime, right? And so, yeah, I mean, I think if we're going to do that, this nutrition piece of it has to be on, right? I mean, because if there's one thing that's going to drive kids away from the sport more than anything, it's if they're not eating and drinking anything, right? I mean, it's not fun for anyone, right? If we're never having the correct nutrition, right? It feels like you're always fighting against yourself more than anything. And so really, and we've seen it a lot with our national team, right? We've talked about this a little bit the other week, where it seems like when athletes come in, some of them, most of them, I would say, maybe come in with just not the right philosophy on maybe losing weight or cutting weight. We don't even use the word cutting weight anymore.
Right.
Not even used. We don't even use that term. But they're going down a weight class, let's say, and how are they going to do that, right? And it seems like for a long time they have their own ideas, and then they finally realize that maybe there's a better way to do it, and they start really buying into our dietitians at the US Olympic Committee. And when that happens, it's a dramatic change in their wrestling.
Buy-in?
Yeah, when they buy into that, they have a dramatic change in their course of their career. And I would say one person most notably, just of recent, is Sarah Hildebrand.
Sarah Hildebrand, sure.
Sarah Hildebrand, I would say in 2016 or leading into 2016, she was trying to do things probably not the right way. And when she made the commitment to and made that change, she was a completely different person, a completely different wrestler, and just a lot more enjoyable to be around, and a lot more energized on that wrestling mat, and not just in competition, but in practices on a daily basis. And so it's imperative, right? That's as important as anything else. If we only do the right things on the mat, that's only half of it, right? We got time off the mat that we have to do the right things as well. And what we're putting into our mouth is a lot of it, right? And how we're doing that. So.
Yeah, and that was someone who did everything right except maybe the nutritional portion of it. And that nutritional portion of it was so important that, fantastic. Frank, I think we got time for one, maybe two more. We're at 8:01, but there's some pretty good questions right there.
There's some real good ones. So one that I really like here was from Philip. So Ben made the comment about competing being a skill. So the question is, what can we as coaches do to help our athletes who practice hard, but when it comes to competing, they struggle to transfer their practice skills to the competition mat?
Well, I think it starts with preparation, right? I think that there needs to be a routine, because normally what happens, right, in that practice room, when it's just their friends and their coaches and people they're comfortable around, they're at ease, right? All of a sudden you bring them into a gymnasium where, now there's 10 other teams or 20 or 30 other teams, and there's a lot of, maybe you're in a different environment that you're not used to, you're different locations and things like that. When there's not a familiarity to it, you have to bring that familiarity back. So how do you do that? So one of the ways is having a pre-match ritual, right? A pre-tournament warm-up or ritual that you do, right? And no matter where you're at in the world, no matter where you're warming up, or no matter who's warming up around you, you're in a comfortable zone because you've been there so many times over and over and over. We have a pre-match warm-up for Team USA. We've been doing it for about 2.5 years now, and it doesn't change. It doesn't matter where we're at, what competition we're at. Now, we can add some things to it. People can take a few of those situations out, but there's a general guideline that we're following, and it helps bring them to a place where it's comfortable to them. They understand it no matter what's happening around them. So that's one thing, right? I think it's important to have your team, right? Your small circle around you, and one of the things that, the girls use a lot is they huddle up around in a circle, right? Where it's their circle, right? And before every match, I don't know what's going on in that circle. That's their circle. It's for the athletes, right? But what it does is you put them in a circle like that, and they're all huddled around each other, just like imagine a football huddle, right? When they're huddled around each other, and all of a sudden they're just bringing back, okay, let's have a good warm up right now. Let's have a good day today. Let's compete hard. Whatever they're saying to each other, right? What it does is it puts the focus on them. And it takes the focus away from everything going on around them in that gymnasium. So for ourselves, it narrows our focus to us and what we need to do to be successful, right? And for everyone else in the gym is looking at Team USA, like, what are they doing over there? Right? It puts their focus on something they shouldn't be focusing on. So it does two things at the same time, right? And I think it's really important, though, to have some kind of routine that is you're bringing up every day. Like if we do matches, just a competition simulation, right? We always do that same warm-up. I mean, we go through that warm-up, you know, we could do that. The girls could do it in their sleep almost, right? I mean,
Which is the key. Which is the key.
yeah, and it's just comfortable to them. It's they know what's coming. We're not surprising them with anything, and they know what they're going to get out of it. And if they have to get a little bit more, you know, everyone's different in how their body is waking up that day and everything like that. So you might have to do a little bit more. You might have to do a little bit less. You know, those things can be adjusted, but it is important to have a routine to bring them back to a place so they can compete, right? So because what competing is, right, is you got to free yourself up of everything else around you and just let yourself run, right? And let yourself go and not worry about it. So focus on the process instead of focusing on that end result. Too many times when we're not competing hard, we're focusing on the end result and not the process, right? If we stay focused on the process, everything is possible.
Well, and when you tell people trust your training, that gives you the opportunity to actually say it and back it up.
Right.
Trust your training. You've done this over and over and over. You can do it in your sleep. I know you can. Trust your training. Don't worry about everything else. So you have great points.
Yep. No, for sure. I think this webinar has been fantastic. You know, this whole series is just great. It really is. You know, Terry, Alex, appreciate you guys' time, you know, and getting these guys on. Phenomenal insight. So, you know, we have we have the registration that takes place, and you know, one of the things that we promise is that there's a free USA apparel to a winner each week. And last week's winner, we want to go ahead and announce him now. Alex, you want to go ahead and do your drum roll?
Turbo drummer.
Oh, there you go. We're looking for Demetro Sinclair. Okay, so congratulations to Sinclair there. We'll get an email out to him and find out, you know, logistics to get that apparel to him. So everyone who registered for this webinar this week, because of all the technical glitches, congratulations. It's a lot smaller pool. Chances went up. All right, so
There you go. Great way to think about it.
we got to find the positives and everything here. So that we'll have the website back up and running here very shortly, and you'll be able to go through there and get your membership access and everything, and access to all the webinars that we've done. So guys, great stuff. I really appreciate the time from you this week.
Frank, awesome job as usual. Coach, great job. And this is fantastic. Don't forget, did you put in the Monday, Wednesday, if they want to know more about, you can put that in.
Yep.
And then next week, Randy Couture. Okay.
Yeah, and Randy will be fun. You know, first time I was really got to know Randy. Of course, we were on different teams. He was at Oklahoma State. I was at Iowa at the same time. Because Randy came into college wrestling after a military career, right? And but then we coached together at Oregon State University, where he was the head assistant and I was the second assistant out there when I was right out of college. And then we were both still competing at the time in wrestling. And then Randy, you know, after a few years, he went on to MMA and was obviously a great star there. But we had so many good times at Oregon State, and he's a wonderful guy. You guys are cool.
That's awesome.
Spread the word, you know, for all of you attendees here tonight. I mean, spread the word, get some more people on. I mean, Randy will have he has some great insight. And
yeah, I got a great idea. Spread the word, and everybody that you get on, we'll give you another chance to win that apparel. I know Frank can figure that out.
I appreciate it. Don't have enough. We're working on the way it is.
We'll double and triple. Listen, it's simple math. 2x.
Hey, there you go. Yeah. So I'm gonna put that on the on the PET.
If they're number one And then we got 50. They're number 51 too. They're 1 and 51. We're good. We got
So
it.
good. You've got this figured out, Alex. You know what? I don't even need to do it. You're the man.
Okay, we're there. We're good.
Yeah.
Terry, thanks a bunch. Frank.
All right. Thank you, guys.
All right. We'll see you
Awesome.
guys
See you next week, everyone.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Have a great night.